Welcome to a sweltering South Africa for your sunset safari, and this is Safari Live. Ready?
Standing by.
Five, 4, 3, 2, 1. You are live, you are live.
Welcome. As I said, it's a sweltering day here in South Africa. It's about 95 Fahrenheit, 35 Celsius. My name is Brent Leo Smith, and on camera with me is Genre, and who's spotted a bird of prey. Let's try and get a little bit closer. I didn't have a good look. I just saw some dark wings head in there. Now remember, this is live, so it might escape, it might sit, you never know. Remember, hashtag Safari Live or questions at WildEarthTV if you want to ask us any questions about what is happening here in the Greater Kruger National Park, or if you're wondering about, oh darn it, but I'm going to go quickly. General size, shape and impression, and coloration. So quite often with birds, you got to be quick. I'm pretty sure I know which one that is. Let's see if he's landed a little bit up ahead. He's a bit nervy there. And so as far as I know, we've only seen that eagle once or twice so far this summer. It is one of the migrants, and it was the last of the migrants to arrive. And a big, oh, there we go. Oh, he's just on the move again. But while he's on the move, a big welcome to our schools for this afternoon who are joining us for their very own private safari. It's Windsor Woods, Windsor Oaks, you guys are trying to get me confused, and Creed Elementary Schools. So great to have you back on the vehicle, and Genre has spotted a gorgeous kingfisher. It is called a woodlands kingfisher. There we go, and you see that lovely electric blue. Now, when you say kingfisher, you would expect this bird to be next to a pan or a body of water. But not all kingfishers eat fish. This is an insectivorous kingfisher, so he eats bugs and frogs and lizards, and is quite often does a lot of his feeding away from the water. Now see how he's opened his beak like that? That's because it's swelteringly hot today. And if you look carefully at his throat, he's inhaling very quickly. That is called a gula flutter. It's a bird's air conditioning system. So they bring air quickly over the blood vessels in the tongue to cool the blood down. Okay. Hello, Amaya. Amaya would like to know, what are the types of birds in South Africa? Well, Amaya, there are too many to list, but I'll list a few. Kingfishers, wood hoopus, barbets, cisticulars, flycatchers, ducks, geese, waders, plovers, lapwings, hornbills, hawks, buzzards, and lots more. So there are lots of different bird species. There are about 700 different individual bird species in South Africa alone. Okay. Now, we're looking for any animals, but it is quite hot, so they might be hiding from us, so we might have to move quite a distance. But while we keep searching, we're going to go meet one of the other members of the team who's out to take you on your very own private safari walk.
Good afternoon, everybody, from the Windsor Oaks, Windsor Woods and Creeds Elementary Schools. My name is James Hendry, and on camera today we have Brian. Brian.
Hello.
You seem to have something painted on your thumb.
Yes.
It's a piece of toast, isn't it, Brian?
It's a burnt toast.
Oh, burnt toast, and something has had a bite out of it.
Yes.
How very strange.
How very strange.
Good.
Indeed.
Now, we're going to be going on a walk for this afternoon. And while we're walking, we're going to be looking for little things like insects and perhaps some birds and tracks. That's the footprints that the animals leave. And maybe something bigger. Maybe we'll find an elephant. Maybe we'll be lucky enough to see a cat. So that's the team on walk today, except to introduce you to a man called Herbert. And Herbert is a long way away over there, and he's a tracker. He's a very, very fine tracker, and he's looking for animals while we over here. Mitchell, you want to know what animals we see the most of? Well, on walk, like with everything else, the most common animal that we see is the impala. And that's a little antelope, a bit sort of about the size of a white-tailed deer, I imagine. That might give you a bit of an idea of how big it is. Now, just look at this tree. I didn't start behind this bush for the sake of it. This is a bush called Combretum imberbe, or the leadwood. And the important thing to note about this whole little thing here is that this bush is an ecosystem. There are lots and lots of things living in it and on it and underneath it. So there are ants living inside the bush. I saw one recently just walking along. Here we go, Brian. There's some ants on the leaves there. Can you see them there? Some special ants. Here's a bigger one. There's a wasp there. You see the wasp? Did you see it vaguely at all? There it is. That's a wasp. So there's some ants there. And then, of course, you know, a big bush like this provides shade. And that means it's not the only thing growing here, because it gets very hot out here, you know. So here is another bush growing underneath the shade of the big leadwood tree. And what you can see is that this bush here has been eaten. It's been devoured. Something has eaten it. And I suspect it was probably a caterpillar of some kind that's had a go here. Then, living around this bush, look at this very nasty hole that we have over here. This, everybody, is a scorpion's hole. Now, I bet you all know what a scorpion is, and I bet you, if you're very clever, you'll be quite nervous of scorpions, because scorpions can be very nasty. And this is called a burrowing scorpion. You all know what a burrow is. It's a hole in the ground that something lives in. And this scorpion likes to eat things called millipedes. And a millipede is a sort of long, it's not an insect, but it's an invertebrate. It's like a big worm with lots and lots of different legs. And those are the exoskeleton of the millipede. Now, what we're going to try and do is just see if we can get the scorpion to put his hand out here, just so that you can see him. Evan, while we do this, you want to know how many bugs we normally see on walk? Evan, we don't normally see many bugs. Well, in fact, we do. But the most, I suppose, it's difficult to say how many, because, you know, if we go to a termite mound or an ant nest, there could be millions and millions of them. Now, what I'm doing here is I'm just irritating him slightly. He's going to think that this is something to eat. Jonathan, you're obviously a very clever fellow, because you want to know if bugs migrate. I'm just going to stick my head in there, Brian, to see if I can see it. No, I don't know that this guy's at home. I think he's not at home anymore. Anyway, that's his... Oh! Let's just quickly try once more. Now what we do is we pull this out very slowly, and he holds it, you see, because he thinks it might be something to eat. No, I don't think he's home. Anyway, that is the burrowing scorpion. Jonathan, you want to know if any of the animals here migrate, or any of the bugs migrate. Believe it or not, Jonathan, they don't here, but they do in your part of the world. You've probably heard of the monarch butterfly, and the monarch butterfly moves in huge numbers from Mexico all the way up, I think, to the northern parts of the United States. I think that's what the monarch butterfly does in your part of the world. That's a very, very good question from you. Right, on we go. It's about 35 degrees Celsius out here, which is around about 93 degrees Fahrenheit. So it's quite hot. You can see lots of cloud has come over the sky, and that's quite nice for us, because it's nice and shady for us. So we're going to head down towards where Herbert is tracking. We'll hopefully find something interesting for you. And while we do that, go and meet my friend Jamie Patterson.
and welcome to the Sunset Safari, and a very warm welcome to all of the schools joining us this afternoon: Windsor Oaks, Windsor Woods, and of course Creed Elementary. As James said, my name is Jamie, and it is my pleasure to have Dave on camera with me this afternoon. Hey Dave, welcome back Dave. And we're starting off with one of my favorite antelope. Hello little boy. Now this particular antelope is called a nyala, which is actually somewhat of a difficult word to say. Nyala. N-Y-L-A-L-A. Nyala. And this particular one is a teenage boy. The female Inyala are the colour of the stockings on this male Inyala's legs. The males are a sort of a dark browny grey colour, and this little guy is somewhere in between. You can see he started to grow his horns, and antelope grow horns from when they're a couple of months old. They'll start to grow up from the top of their heads. The amazing thing about those horns is that those are solid bone. What you doing, you silly boy? Have you got an itchy nose by any chance? I think he was using that branch to scratch his nose. And of course they've got that beautiful fur coat with the white stripes and the dots down it. You can see him stepping delicately along. Jacob, hello and welcome. I hope you're having an amazing time. You want to know what my favorite animal is. Oh, Jacob, it's always so hard to choose, but I think if I had to, I'd probably say a black rhinoceros. I also really love elephants. Elephants I do enjoy spending time with, but it's hard to choose. I love spotted hyena. I can't choose. I love all of the animals so much. Dave, what's your favorite?
Elephant.
Elephant. Dave says his favorite is elephants. What's your favorite, Joshua? What are your favorite animals? I would love to hear. Because, of course, all of my favorite animals are... Jacob, what are your favorite animals? Because all of my favorite animals are African animals, but maybe there's some animals from where you live that you might like just as much as I like elephants and rhino. And it would be lovely to hear. So let me know what your... Jacob, let me know what your favorite animal is. I've never seen a bear, for example. I would love to see a bear. And Hayden, you want to know? I'm going to try and get you another view of this particular young antelope because it's a good question. You want to know how do we tell how old an antelope is? It can be quite difficult and you can't always do it accurately. The reason that I know that this is a young antelope, and he's probably only about a year, maybe just over a year old, is because I know how fast young nyala grow. So I know from when they're born and when they're babies, and I know how quickly they grow and when they start to grow their horns. And it sometimes takes them, and in fact for most antelope it'll actually take them years for their horns to reach their full size, and it's usually between 4 to about 6 years that it takes them for the horns. Now in the nyala's case, when he's fully grown, when he's about 4 years old, his horns are going to go all the way back and then curve upwards, but he hasn't quite got to that point yet. He's still in that teenager stage. He's still got lots of growing to do, but it is difficult and you can't always tell how old an antelope is. As they start to get older, sometimes they get a bit scruffy looking and their teeth wear down. And Kate, you want to know how long can a nyala live? Usually around and up to 10 years, but they can live a little bit longer as well, Kate. The thing is, it's a tough life out here, and there are lots of predators, lions, will eat nyala. So obviously the average age is very dependent on that, with all of the scientific study that goes into it. Not all of the nyala live up to their old ages, but if you had an nyala in captivity, it could probably live just over 10 years or so. Some of our animals can live a really, really long time. Elephants, for example, can live up to 60, even 70 years if it's a really, really old elephant. But usually between about 45 years old and about 50 would be the normal age for an elephant. Tortoises can live 70 years easily. So almost basically as long as a human being. So there are lots of animals that live a very long time. Look at this. No, don't go. It's okay. It's all right. Look here. Look at this tiny little baby. Here you go. Here's another good example of how you can age antelope. This little one is only a few days old, and the male behind it is about a year old. So his horns have grown only as much as they will have in a year. But how cute is this little baby impala? Now, the amazing thing about these antelope is that they can run around and stand about 20 minutes after they're born. So not like a human baby that needs caring for and takes about a year to walk. Look, it's still wobbly. It's so cute. Sam, you wanted to know what antelope eat. They eat plants. They are herbivores. Some of them eat grass, but most of them will eat a mixture of grass and of plants, so of leaves of trees and bushes and shrubs. No, little one, that's not your mommy. That's not your mommy, and he's going to headbutt you if you go too much closer. Your mommy is not him. Is your skin itchy? Oh, you're so cute. So although it can already stand and walk and run, it's still a little bit wobbly. And I saw a baby impala fall over this morning. So they do fall down every now and again. But isn't it amazing that they are able to jump and to run only a few minutes after they're born? Look here. Oh. Oh dear. I told you were going to get a headbutt. Yes, there's your mom. Stay with your mom. Lily, you want to know if baby impala are born with horns to protect them. No, they're not, because otherwise they could actually seriously hurt their mummies. So their horns will only start growing after a few months is when the baby impala will start. You'll see them start to stick through. And for impala, it will only be the boys that grow horns. So if we look at the baby's mom, see, she doesn't have horns at all. Even though she's fully grown, she's a fully grown adult, she doesn't have any horns. And some female antelope do, but in female impala they don't. Yes, there's your mummy. You going to go drink some milk? No, not just yet. Now, there are all sorts of creatures out here, and sometimes we have all sorts of fun imitating them, and it sounds as though Brent is doing his best impression of a monkey.
Okay, so there's lots of different animals, but just as important as the animals are the trees. Now, I'm in a very interesting tree. I'm quite high above the ground at the moment. Now, this is called a Tambuti tree. Now, this tree is eaten by very, very few animals, and the animals that eat it for medicine. So it's highly, highly, highly poisonous, but if they've got bugs like tapeworms or flukes in their stomach, they'll eat the poisonous leaves of the Tambuti tree to get rid of all the bad things. And it can be also used in human medicine, but I'm going to have to come down the tree, hopefully I don't fall out, to show you what I mean. Oh dear, this is quite high. But fortunately, I descended from monkeys, so I still have some tree climbing skills left, one would hope. Oh, maybe not. Okay. Now, let's just take. You gotta be very careful. So touching the bark is fine, but when you take the leaves, you have to be very, very careful. So I'm gonna pull one leaf off, and I'm gonna pop it. Ooh, gotta be careful. Down there. Ooh. Let me turn it around for you now. Now, look at that. You can see there's a white, milky substance coming out of that leaf. Now that's where the poison is. Now this poison is so strong that even when the tree is dead, that poison stays in the wood. And if you had to cook on it, and you made a fire and you made a nice barbecue or cooked a nice stew on it, you would get really, really sick just from the smoke. The poison will go into the smoke and into your food. But it is a very, very cool tree, and it's a very important tree. So baboons, giraffe, black rhino, kudu will all eat this when they've got something wrong with their tummy to try help clean the system out completely. So it is a very important tree. So sometimes poisonous trees can also be good. For human beings, the poison is actually used for toothache. If you've got really, really bad toothache, you've got to be very, very careful with it. They'll put it right into where the hole is in your tooth, and it'll actually sort of kill your nerves completely so you can't feel any more pain. So like what's it called? A root canal by bush root canal. I wouldn't recommend it though. If you can go to the dentist, I would. So we're sitting in a dry riverbed at the moment. We're going to keep moving. Now, dry riverbed's always a good place to look for animals on a hot day, because you've got lovely trees like the Tambuti that offer shade. Now, another thing you might see in this type of area where you've got these nice big trees on the side is monkeys. And Grace was asking, do we usually see monkeys? Well, Grace, this is a good spot to look for monkeys. So we will try keep a lookout for them. We saw some monkeys near here earlier today. But if you have a look carefully through this area, and you can see where the river flows when it flows, where it's deep here. And then we've got what's called a primary floodplain to the left, and then above a secondary floodplain. So this primary floodplain, you can see there's not too many big trees, and there's still quite a lot of sand. So this is where a normal flood would go, but we're going to drive around to take you to the secondary floodplain, and while we do that, let's go back to James, who's wandering around on foot.
And one of the things we find out here that are very special are the grasses. Now, I know that many of your mothers will like flowers, and if your father's very clever, he will be giving your mother's flowers very often. Otherwise, he will be in what is known as the dog box. This here, everybody, is a gorgeous, gorgeous piece of grass. And grasses often in Africa are used instead of flowers because they're so very pretty. And this one, I actually don't know the name of. I'm not sure I've seen it before, but it's very pretty, you can see. And let's see what it tastes like. It's very nice. Now, many of you will also have seen people walking with grass in their mouths. This is because it helps you to think. I always walk around here with a piece of grass in my mouth because it helps me to think. Now, down here, we have one of the most special kinds of flowers here because it survives a very long time, and it's called WildEarthTV. Doesn't have an English name. It's called WildEarthTV, and it's yellow, and what you can see is that it's got a number of different kinds of pieces on it. Well, those little pieces give rise to something called a camouflaged mantis. And the mantis likes to hide on these plants. He looks exactly like one of the flowers. And can you guess what he eats from watching this flower? Can you see where I'm pointing now, Brian? Mm-hmm. Can you see the ant there?
We did.
There, he's just, here he comes. He's on the top of the leaf now. There he is. Now that ant that you saw, and there you see now, you see he's wandering around here looking for nectar to drink from the flowers of the WildEarthTV plant. And if the mantis is around here, and I can't see a mantis here now, he looks exactly like the flower. And so what the ant does is he tries to get some nectar out of the mantis, not realizing that he's a mantis, and then he gets eaten. So it's really very clever of the mantis to look like the flowers. They're predators. They love to eat delicious ants. Ants taste a little bit like, they taste a little bit like lemon sometimes. Some ants taste like pepper and others taste like lemons. Isn't that nice? Now, one of you wanted to know what season it is here. Well, if it's 35 degrees Celsius, 93 degrees Fahrenheit, Shannon, it's not anything other than the middle of summer. It's very hot here, Shannon. And we need to make sure that we have enough to drink when we're out here in the wild. And so what we do is make sure that we have sufficient to drink. Maya, yes they are. You're very clever. You said, are some of the flowers poisonous here? Absolutely. absolutely they are poisonous here, and we need to be very careful. You must never in the wilderness put anything in your mouth that you don't know how to identify. So if you don't know what it is, then you mustn't put it in your mouth. Now, I don't know what this grass is, but I know that none of the grasses here are poisonous. But for example, if I was to find something like this plant here that I'm pointing at with my stick, I don't know what that is, and so I wouldn't dare put that in my mouth because it might make me sick, and that would be very, very dangerous indeed. Now what we're going to do is walk along what we call a drainage line. Now, a drainage line is a dry riverbed, and we're going to walk along it because sometimes you find very interesting things there because there's quite a lot of shade, and that shade means that animals like to hide there, and the trees mean that birds like to live in these drainage line areas. So we're going to go down through here, and then we'll show you over the top into this dry riverbed. And you can imagine that at some stage in the history of this great landscape, there would have been water flowing through these rivers. But now it's very dry, it's much too dry. And so it's highly unlikely that it's going to produce any water. What we're going to do is just look over the top here. See? Look at that. And I can't see any animals, but Brent Leo Smith thinks that he might have something extremely special to show you.
Well, it extraordinarily went behind a bush. We're going to try and get another view. There was a female impala who was displaying some sort of early signs that she might be about to give birth. Now, quite a few of them would have already given birth, but some of them haven't yet. Well, speaking of one that already has given birth, there are not too many of the females that haven't given birth yet. And that's why I was just watching carefully. You can see there's a baby and a mom. So the baby's probably a couple of days old at the oldest. Hello, little guy. Now, I can't see that female who was looking like she was about to give birth at the moment. There she is. That's her. You can see her tail's up quite a bit. I'm going to just try hang around here. Hopefully she doesn't stop behind a thicket, which I think she has. There she comes. You can see how her tail's sticking out, not sitting down low. I'm just trying to watch the side of her belly for any movement. Sometimes you can see the babies kicking. See if she's showing any signs of contractions. Okay, well, we're going to keep a close eye on these impala. While we do that, James has got a bird of prey to show you.
This is very, very, very special, everybody. There's a Wahlberg's eagle, that's what that is there, sitting very close to the ground, and in the background you might just be able to hear francolins. They're like little bush chickens that run around the bush here, and what they're doing is alarm calling. So they're calling, pa-cha, 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 because they're very afraid of the Wahlberg's eagle. They think the Wahlberg's eagle wants to eat them, and they're not wrong. The Wahlberg's eagle would happily eat them, but normally that eagle likes to eat things like lizards, and sometimes small birds, but often small mammals like mice or gerbils out here. And what I think he's looking for is a lizard, because those termite mounds, you can see that he's living next to, or he's standing next to a termite mound. That's a big mound of soil there, and often in the termite mounds, not only termites live, of course, but lots of lizards and things live inside them. Now, this Wahlberg's eagle we know very well. It's either the male or the female of a couple that lives not far from here, and I think they're looking after some eggs. Gianna, while we look at this eagle and try and figure out what on earth it's trying to do, you want to know if we get lots of eagles here or if they're rare. Gianna, they're not very rare. We do see nice eagles here in protected areas, but I suspect much like in America, they are rare outside of game reserves. So we're in a reserve where people don't really live, and so here there are lots of different kinds of eagles, and I'm just going to quickly tell you about them. There's the Wahlberg's eagle, there's the lesser spotted eagle, there's the steppe eagle, the Marshall eagle, the fish eagle, the brown snake eagle, the Battalier eagle. What else have we got? Well, probably most of them. Oh yes, and the African hawk eagle too, and the tawny eagle. So we've got lots of different kinds of eagles. But that one is very special because they always come back to the same nest every year, and they don't live here all the time. And Sam, you've picked up on a very interesting point here. You say, are birds this size always this close to the ground? I've never seen one this close to the ground. I have seen one once or twice eating on the ground, but not sitting relaxed on a sort of branch waiting there this close to the ground. I'm sure it must have seen a lizard or something going into this termite mound, and I think he's probably patiently waiting to see if it doesn't come out. And you can see him turning round. He's looking towards the francolins, the little bush chickens that are shouting at him. And Richie, we've got your very good question. This eagle will eat other birds if it can catch them, but it's not a specialist in eating other birds. The eagle that we have here that eats other birds the most is something called an African hawk eagle, and they hunt in pairs. And so what happens is the male flies high up above and the female a little bit lower. And they love to eat francolins and guinea fowl. Those are the sorts of birds they like to eat. And while the male is flying up and the guinea fowl are watching, going ptz, 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 alarm calling, the female comes climbing in from low down, and she'll nail one of those little bush chickens, and then they'll eat it and they'll be very happy indeed. This guy is looking for something. Now, Shannon and Miss Frederick, you're wondering about how this eagle manages to breed. Well, Shannon, this particular eagle does indeed lay eggs. All birds lay eggs. Every single bird in the world lays eggs, and this particular one lays only one egg at a time. Many eagles lay two, but this guy only lays one egg at a time, and then they raise the chick, the male and the female. Season. So when it's winter here, they're in North Africa, they're not down here in Southern Africa, and then they come down here to breed. They normally arrive here around about August time. Some big eagles, like for example the black eagle, which is an enormous eagle, will lay two eggs, but then something very unattractive happens. When the first one is born, it eats the food that the mother brings, and then when the second one is born, the first one normally kills the second one. And so the second egg is almost like an insurance policy in case the first one doesn't survive. That's something called siblicide. Alrighty, we're going to stand here a little bit longer with this little bird, or quite big bird actually, it's about that big. While we do that, Brent is still with a pregnant impala. Let's go and find out if she's going to have her little lamb.
Well, she's moved into the thickets, and you can see there's actually two of them there. Unfortunately, this is the best view we've got at the moment. I don't want to put any extra pressure on them, so we're keeping our distance as they slowly move parallel to us. Now, impalas will generally give birth in a little bit of a thicket, which can make viewing the birds sometimes a little bit difficult. Hi, Tristan. Tristan would like to know if I've seen any animals give birth before. Well, Tristan, on the live drives, I think we've seen wildebeest, zebra give birth before. I haven't seen a live birth before, but in all my years in the bush, I've seen lots of different birds. I've seen impala, elephant, giraffe, kudu, wildebeest, zebra. I've seen quite a few impala birds as well. I'm just trying to see if I can get another view of them as they're moving through the thickets. See, there might be a gap through here. Okay, I'm hoping they're going to move forward. While they're moving forward, I'll keep an eye on where they should pop out. There's some other animals here. Hello, fluffy waterbucks. Here we go, there's some waterbuck. Catherine's wondering, how many babies do impala have at once? Well, normally one. Twins are very, very rare, but so normally one. So these are female waterbucks. The males have horns. You can see the one at the back left. Oh, there's a male. Oh, he's crossing the road. He's going to walk around shortly. There, that one has already had a drink. You can see the wet lips. So it had a drink at the little the little pan that's here. They're one of our bigger antelope species. Well, the males can have some very impressive horns. I'm just going to go forward a little bit. See if we can spot the male. And then we'll go back to check on those impala. I'm hoping they'll have moved into a slightly more open area. Where did that male go? There he is. So that's the boy. You can see he's got big horns to fight the other boys for girlfriends. And all the waterbuck have that white ring around their bottom. Now, it's a following mechanism, so they can follow each other through the thick bush. Hello, Caden. Caden would like to know why they're called waterbuck. Well, Caden, in certain areas, when they are chased by lions or hyenas or leopards, they run into the water. And that's where they escape from their predators. Now, there's a wonderful... Oh, I'll have to tell you that story a little bit later. I'm going to try find that those impala again. While we do that, let's go back to James.
We've snuck just slightly closer, everyone, to the Wahlberg's eagle. We've come about, about 30 feet closer, maybe even more, 40 feet or so. And we're just trying to see if he will fly away or if he'll let us come towards him. Isn't this wonderful? He's such a beautiful bird, and I've never been this close to a bird like this on foot. Not ever, except once, actually. I'm talking nonsense. I have once, but that was a chick, and that was round about this time of the year when a couple of Wahlberg's eagles where I used to work, they lost their baby. He fell out of the nest and they left him, and he wasn't much smaller than this one, and so we picked him up, we took him home and we fed him, and he eventually flew off, and I don't know where he is now, but I think he survived. It's very special, and you can hear still maybe the francolins going, "Butter, butter, butter." Josie, you wondering if all eagles eat lizards? Josie, not all eagles will choose to eat lizards, but I suspect most eagles will if they have to eat lizards. Our biggest eagle, the Marshall eagle, loves to eat lizards. But enormous lizards, big monitor lizards, they catch them quite a lot. I think you'll find that most eagles, if they find a lizard to eat, will eat a lizard. But they don't all specialize in them. So, for example, like I said, the African harrier hawk, at least the African hawk eagle, that loves to eat other birds. The Marshall eagle will eat lizards, definitely. The tawny eagle and the Battalier eagle, well, they like to eat carrion or rotting flesh. So they're a bit like vultures, or what you would call a buzzard. They like to go down towards something that's dead and eat that. Ooh, there's something extra special going on now. Did you see the bird land on top there? Okay, we're not going to try and look at it now, but a very special bird called a great spotted cuckoo has just landed in the tree above our very friendly eagle. Now, come with us, everybody. I want you to be very, very, very quiet, okay? And I want you to watch where you place your feet. Be careful not to snap on any twigs or any leaves. We're going to go just a little bit closer to Mr. or Mrs. Wahlberg. I don't know if this is the male or the female. You know, with these birds, often the female is bigger than the male, unlike with human beings. Now, Aidan, you're wondering if... Oh, look, there's the other one. Ashfan, Ilish. Shafan. There was another big raptor, a big bird of prey that flew out of this tree. Excuse me, everybody. It flew out of the tree and away, but it's not a Wahlberg's eagle that flew out of the tree. Now, sorry, I missed that question. Oh, yes, you're wondering if we will be attacked by it. I think it's Aidan. Aidan, we won't be attacked by this eagle. What he will do is fly away from us. He would never try and attack us because it's much easier for him to fly away than fly towards us. And most animals, if they attack a human being, it's because they're scared of us. It's not because they don't like us or because they want to eat us or hurt us. It's because they're afraid. And if you know that, you realize, of course, that an animal will run away from you, will fly away long before it decides to attack you. And so it's much easier for this eagle, which is smaller than us, to just fly away rather than try and attack us. It might attack us if we were trying to steal eggs from a nest, or if we were trying to perhaps take its chick out of a nest, then it might attack us. But as it stands now, it's not going to. I don't think. If it does, we'll make sure to film it. Hello, Logan. You're wondering how an eagle attracts a mate. Well, what they do, Logan, the first thing they have to do is have a shower, and then they put on their best feathers. And once they've put on their best feathers, they put on some nice smelling scent. Normally they pick it from a flower here called ossamum, and it smells like aniseed. And then they go round to the nest of the eagle that they like, and they knock on one of the branches, and then the big daddy eagle sticks his head out of the nest and he says, "What do you want?" And out pops the big daddy eagle's daughter, and he says, "I'd like to take your daughter out to see a movie, please, sir." And off they go on a date, and if they like each other, well, then they spend the rest of their lives together. They get married. Logan, I'm obviously talking absolute nonsense. They do it through probably pheromones. You know, pheromones are a very special kind of chemical that all bodies produce. We do as well. And it's what attracts male and female animals to each other. And if they smell right to each other, so if a male Wahlberg's eagle smells right to a female, and I'm not joking about this, this is absolutely true, and a female smells right to the male, then they will get together, and you know, with a Wahlberg's eagle, they mate for life. They'll form a pair bond, what we call a monogamous pair bond, and they come back to the same nest every year. So they make a home here in one of these trees, and every year they come back and they make a few modifications. They lay an egg and they raise a chick, and then they go back to North Africa for the winter. Doesn't that sound like a nice life? It means, everybody, remember we chatted about migration very early on in this drive, and we spoke about the migrating monarch butterflies. Now, if you're a bird and you can migrate, what it means is you never have to have winter. Doesn't that sound fun? You're always in summer. So they come here for the summer, and then they go into the northern hemisphere while we have winter and the northern hemisphere has summer. Alrighty. I'm not sure that we're going to get any closer than this, but you know what? We're going to try. And while we're trying, let's go and find out how Brent's doing with his waterbuck.
So we're still with those waterbuck. Now, I'll tell you an interesting old African folklore about waterbuck. They are and why they can go into the water, because of course in the water out here there are crocodiles, but a waterbuck will run into the water even though there are crocodiles. And why would the crocodiles let the waterbuck do it? So the old story goes that many years ago, a crocodile was feeding along, or was sleeping on the edge of his river, and a big tree fell down and trapped the crocodile under the log, and waterbuck happened to be walking past. Actually, I'm going to move a little bit further forward so you can see the male. There we go, because that's important for the story. And waterbuck happened to be walking past, and crocodile said, "Oh, waterbuck, please help me with those beautiful big horns of yours and move the log off my back, so otherwise I'm going to die." Waterbuck said, "Not a chance, you scaly fiend. If I move that log off there, you'll just eat me next time I go into the water." And the crocodile begged and begged and begged and promised that waterbuck would never be harmed if he ran into the water, and his whole family would be spared. And eventually, after much convincing, the waterbuck used his big horns and lifted the log off the crocodile, and the crocodile was free. And since that day, waterbuck has been free to take refuge from lions and other predators in the rivers and lakes of Africa. Of course, that is not a true story. A crocodile will eat a waterbuck given the opportunity, but it is an old African folklore from the Zulu people. Well, it's been absolute blast having... Wait, now I'm going to confuse you. It's Glen Oak and Glen Windsor. No! Creeds, Windsor Woods and Windsor Oaks. It's been great having you guys on Drive with us, and hopefully we'll be seeing you on another wonderful school trip soon. And we're going to jump across to Jamie, who's got another antelope.
And what a lovely start we have had to this sunset safari, and again a very warm welcome to all of our regular viewers and any of our new viewers. We've now said goodbye to our school and it's back to the normal sunset safari. The reason I'm whispering, there's a female walking past here. I think there is, I'm not sure, let me just go forward a little bit. She's moving off now. There's a female impala that was originally on her own. Now she's been joined by another female and a little one. But there's a female impala that looks, she was on her own earlier. She might have just been separated from the rest of the group. She's that one on the right, Dave. I don't want to get too much closer. And she's waddling. Now, of course, she could just be waddling because she's heavily pregnant, and that's the way that things go. But I've noticed her standing in a very uncomfortable looking position. She is panting as well, which could also be because it's hot. Yeah, little one. I did start to wonder whether or not she was going into labor, which is entirely possible. Most of the impala births take place in the morning. She just looks uncomfortable. Maybe she has an injury, maybe she hurt her leg whilst running, but she just looked a little bit unsteady on her feet. She was standing separate from the rest of the herd when I first found her, and she was sort of panting and looking particularly uncomfortable. So it could be, who knows? You never know when the animals... We've had a few live births before. I hear that Brent has got another female antelope in a very similar condition. I'm just wondering whether it's not worth not following her, because now that we're in this dense vegetation, there's no way that we can. But there is a road that cuts through just around there, and I think I'm going to go and have a look around there. Can you imagine a live antelope birth? How would that be, Dave, for your first afternoon back? Perfect, I agree. To celebrate the rest of our team, or almost the rest of our team, shame apart from Taylor who missed her flight, almost the rest of the team's return. Let's just go around here. And then we should actually have a nice, very open view, because from this road we can see all the way to the DRC. We should have a very nice open view of her from far away, so she doesn't feel uncomfortable, and then we can decide as to whether or not it might be worth sticking around for a few minutes just to see. She might also just be constipated. She's very pregnant. It's very hot. Their diets have changed over the last few days or last few weeks because of the rains. Whoopsies, we nearly missed the opportunity. And now, of course, I've lost track as to which one she was. Now there's two. I think that's her. I think that is her walking at the back. See that wide-legged stance? I don't see any sign of wetness, so her water hasn't broken. But I have to confess, I also thought, mind you, that I saw some muscle contractions, but that could also have been the fetus kicking inside of her. So I'm not 100% sure. Hey girl. She is looking very big. It's interesting that both of those impala look pregnant, and yet there is a little one with them. I'm not sure whether that baby's become confused or if maybe I'm just mistaken about the one female, but they both look pregnant to me. And perhaps there is another female that I just haven't seen. Okay, let's cut through this road here. See if we catch up with them there. They might be going to Gallagher Waterhole for a drink. And welcome to Graham on our sunset safari. You want to know if impala give birth to one lamb or if they can give birth to two. You'll probably find that there'll be exceptional cases of twins being recorded. I've never ever seen it. And I think that often people think that there are twins because they're seeing a sort of a group of lambs together, because lambs don't always, even from very early on, unfortunately, these lambs are all hiding behind the bushes. From very early on, the lambs tend to congregate in a group and often get separated from their mothers, and they tend to hang around with another female. But for the most part, it is very, very rare. I've never heard of it, but I wouldn't be surprised if there are recorded cases of twins being born. I'm not sure whether any of you have ever encountered a story of twin impala lambs, but all of the births and all of the babies that I have seen have just been one baby per impala. And that makes sense, because what it means is that the impala ewe can actually devote, and you'll find this with all of our herbivores, an impala ewe and a wildebeest cow and an elephant cow, they devote a huge amount of their body's resources into making these little babies, which is why twin antelope and twin herbivores are exceptionally rare. They are born so precocial, so well developed, that it makes sense for the females to put more of their resources and of course have more space for a developing baby, so that they can produce the biggest babies possible. And impala lambs are pretty large when you think about it. They look tiny now, but when you compare them to the size of their moms, their legs almost seem as long as their mothers, which is very important for their survival. And exactly the same thing applies for a wildebeest or an elephant or a buffalo. It makes more sense to invest your resources into only producing one baby that is able to get up and ready and run. Whereas with the carnivores, it's the complete opposite, because they can actually hide their babies away. They're better at hiding their babies away. They've got a completely different approach to raising little ones, which means that their gestation periods are shorter, which again is important, because when you're pregnant, hunting is a huge, it takes a huge toll on your body, and it's also very dangerous for the predators. It takes one kick to the stomach to really jeopardize a pregnancy. So as a result, they keep the pregnancies as short as they possibly can. For all of our big cats, they sit at around 90 to 100 days, and their babies are born much, much smaller in proportion to the adults, and they take longer to grow. They take a lot longer to grow up. They're born altricial. In other words, they are not able to run and to exist in the same way that these baby impala are. There are recorded cases, of course, of elephant twins, and there are also rare instances of giraffe twins as well. Although, again, it's another situation where I think that a lot of the time people have assumed a giraffe has had twins, when in fact it is just another baby giraffe and the mother's out of sight. And a little one resting there. Now, I'm sorry to leave these impala, but I just want to see if we can catch up with that female. It might just be that she's feeling hot, muggy, tired, pregnant. Her ankles are probably a bit swollen. She's probably had to urinate 5 times in the last hour. So, I mean, it could just be that she's feeling hugely uncomfortable. There we go, there they're coming through. Now, Holly, you want to know whether or not impala will allosuckle. So if, for example, a little baby impala gets separated from the rest of the herd, will another mother nurse it? No, they don't. And they actually, oh dearie me, I've lost track of which female it was now. There's so many impala here. Holly, no, they won't. And they're actually quite actively aggressive in pushing a baby away that is not theirs. There's a very, very strong bond between the mothers and their offspring. And you'll see it with everything from wildebeest. I mean, I have seen zebra foals being kicked and bitten by females that won't help them out. I can understand impala would be a slightly different thing, but no, they'll headbutt the babies and they'll push them away from their teats. And of course, many of you, I think quite a few of you will perhaps have had some farm experience, or perhaps have been on farms before, and you'll know that with female sheep, if you do want to get the mother to accept a lamb that isn't hers, you have to go about doing so in a very, very careful way, and a lot of that is purely scent-based, which obviously doesn't happen in the wild. The mother bonds so tightly to the sound and to the smell of her own baby that she won't accept another one. Oh dear, I have lost track of our female. I have absolutely no idea which one it was that we were looking at. It could be any one of the back here. And actually, if she was going into labor, she probably would not have rejoined the rest of the herd. So perhaps we got a little bit overexcited there. But I'm sure you are all wondering what's happening with Brent. And I think it's time to head over to him so that he can update you.
Look at that. It's a very tatty looking joker. Oh, it looks like she's missing a bit of her wings. Right, feeding on a lovely, lovely little weeping wattle flower. It looks like that joker made a narrow escape from some predatory bird or possibly other insect. Ooh. And I hear something else that flies, but a bit bigger than a butterfly. No, I heard him calling him and go backwards. So I heard that whoop, the beginning of the black-bellied bustard's call. Ah, there we go, got it. Top of the termite mound. Just trying to get a good spot. Strange. There we go. How's that, Chandra? Bit more? So there we go. A male black-bellied bustard sitting on a nice prominent termite mound. Now, they'll call and display from a high ground like that to try attract all the ladies. Now, let's see if it does that wonderful popping sound. There we go. There we go, there's the pop. Yeah, well, I do love watching them when they call. Come on, girls, where are you? He almost looks to the sky, saying, ladies, why do you abandon me? Off he goes. He's coming down the termite mound. No ladies responding to his precious calls from the top. So he's probably going to move through here. He might be a bit hungry. He also might just move to another vantage point, another piece of higher ground where he can possibly attract the attention of some females. Bye-bye, mister. Oh, lovely. Now, this hot weather has most of the animals hiding. Unfortunately, those two pregnant impala we're following went down into the thickets where we can't get a car, and if they are going to give birth, I don't want to disturb them. But quickly across to Jamie with another feathered friend.
A feathered friend that is actually very often quite shy, which is why we've stopped to listen to it. It's also making a racket this afternoon. So let me just be quiet for a second so that you can hear the sounds it's making. It is a brown-headed parrot, and you can just see it cheeping. I know that the black-headed oriole, that whistle, is sort of the overwhelming sound that we're hearing. But you're listening to the whistling. Can you hear it there, Dave? Perfect, thank you. The brown-headed parrot, and the black-headed oriole, not to be outdone, is making an absolute racket next to me. And I can't even put it on camera for you because every time we try to, it flies away. But since the light is very difficult and there's absolutely nothing that Dave can do about that situation, I thought for our new viewers, we'd just show you exactly what it looks like in the book. So this is our brown-headed parrot. It is in fact the only parrot that we really will see here. And obviously it gets its name from the brown head. And sometimes the names of birds out here are not all that imaginative. Here he is with his hooked fruit-eating bill, looking very much like the parrots that many of you will know and love from various, if you've had parrots as pets, which of course is something that I always find is a very difficult one. Birds in cages often upset me a great deal. This is a brown-headed parrot. We could also potentially maybe see a mayor's parrot. A mayor's parrot you'd only really find right up in the top north. Oh, sorry, Dave. Let me take my thumb away from the Rupel's parrot, because if you're seeing a Rupel's parrot, you're definitely in the wrong place. Sorry, no, that was totally my fault. The mayor's parrot is a completely brown one with a bright yellow spot on the top of its head. Now you'd have to be right up in the top northwestern parts of Kruger to see one of these, if you're lucky. But some of you, those of you who perhaps have travelled South Africa and travelled Kruger, might have seen this particular bird as well. Of course, whenever I sit with my bird book, who have just commented on the name of the bird, I often like to read out the voice, the literal reading of bird calls as written by ornithologists. Unfortunately, that one's quite boring. Typically parrot-like, raucous shriek. Oh, that's disappointing, isn't it, Dave? That is most disappointing. You could also see a grey-headed parrot, but again, we're quite far outside of their range. A grey-headed parrot looks exactly like that one that is sitting up at the top of the tree, chattering away, but it, of course, has a grey head, not a brown head. Who on earth would ever have guessed? And since this oriole is being so demanding and sitting so beautifully where Dave can't see it, I'm going to try and find it for you. I can hear you whistling. The bird that, of course, we always think about, or when we think about Sam and his favourite bird. Now, the light isn't spectacular for it. Can you see it there, Dave? Yeah. Oh, you horrible bird. You horrible creature. The joys of live wildlife filming, particularly when your subjects have wings. And I seem to be really testing Dave on his first day back from leave. I'm sorry, Dave. I'm sorry. We'll go find a giant land snail. No, Dave's doing a marvelous job. I'm only playing with him. All right, birds. Let's go find a different black-headed oriole, because that one was just taunting us. He was just waiting for us to turn the camera onto it before it flew away. That is, of course, half the fun. It wouldn't be nearly as much fun if it was easy, would it, Dave? Exactly. All of our cats have abandoned us. The lions have gone into Simbambili. Karula's gone into Little Gowrie. Tingana's gone into Torchwood. So our leopards are off property. Our lions are off property. They're all around though, and of course with Karula particularly, the queen of Djuma, that female leopard, she has a way of doing unexpected returns, or making unexpected returns. Now, Lavnisha, you wanted to know about the 2 cubs that went with the Lion Pride. Lavnisha, we haven't heard anything, but I am planning a trip across in that direction in the not too distant future. So I will try and find out from some of the other guides and I'll let you know. So what Lavnisha means, and for those of you that perhaps missed yesterday's safari, we were with all 6 cubs with the females at a buffalo kill at City Dam. And after we left to make vehicles, apparently James was there, and further into the dip, got how to drive. It's this. Let's go up this hill. There we go. There we go. So what happened there was the anti-poaching patrol, from what we can tell, doing their regular patrol. The lions saw them on foot and they ran away, and 2 of the cubs remained behind. Now I'm going across to Sydney's Dam to see what's happened with that buffalo carcass. I imagine with its proximity to our hyena clan, and that side of the... Sorry, it's another parrot. And just flew away again. With their proximity to the hyena clan, I think that buffalo is going to be gone, but we will check up and see. I have a lot of faith that those cubs will be reunited with the pride. Actually, I have a feeling after all of the Nkuhumas, everything that they've gone through, and that incredible ability of those little cubs to survive a huge amount, I think they're going to be fine. But I'll double check. I will try and double check for you and let you know. Our James seems to have a unique knack for approaching animals on foot. I think we should go and see what he's found at this time.
I'm not so sure about that unique knack doing anything on foot, frankly. But anyway, we've got Lucky here with some waterbuck cows who are fascinated by Brian. Aren't they, Brian?
They are.
They are totally fascinated by him. What's interesting here is that they're different colours. The one on the left is, well, grayish grey-brown. The one on the right has got a very pretty blonde mane, if that's your sort of thing. And then the one on the right is kind of, well, in between. And that's interesting because often, I think, you see a waterbuck and you think, well, a bit like impala, they're exactly the same as each other, and very clearly they are not. There might be an age difference there. It might just be that they sometimes have different coloured hair, a bit like us. Now they've taken fright, of course, because I was commenting on the way they look. They're very shy, you see. I shouldn't have done that, should I, Brian?
No.
It was objectifying them to some degree.
Yeah.
On we go. I'm not sure what our signal is going to be like. We're going to head off along the road through here. I said on the road and then through here because I was given a sharp instruction through the medium of a pointing fist by Herbert, who said, no, through here. So we're going down through here towards a waterhole, little waterhole called Cheetah, and we're hoping there might be something there. We might also be slowly, and if we look like we're going to lose you, we'll quickly stop and find something to show you. In fact, I may have found something already. This is interesting. I think it's been eaten out. This is the ball of a dung beetle. But it's old and it's been buried, and I think it's been dug up. Let me open it up. Yeah, it's been eaten out. I think you'll find that a dung beetle may well have hatched out of that. So maybe the grub ate its dung, pupated, and became a dung beetle, and is now flying around looking for dung. And this, over here, I stand to correction, is where I think it could well have come from. Can you see this? I think this was dung. This was buffalo dung. It was a pile of buffalo dung. And the dung beetles have come and they've buried it completely. They've broken it up, and they've buried it under the ground. I'm just going to gently move it away. What I don't want to do is expose any egg, because they don't all roll balls, of course. Lots of the dung beetles just lay their egg underneath the dung. But I think that's what's on here. Anyway, I don't want to disturb it. It would be tragedy not to have as many dung beetles as possible. Of course, we love our dung beetles, don't we, Brian?
We do.
Yes, we do. On we go. Come on now. It's not a very good dung beetle day, really, because, of course, there is cloud. They don't seem to like the cloud very much. And as many of you will know, I've been reading that book on quantum biology, which is, it's not a light read. It's not something you read, without your brain in full function, really. And one of the fascinating things, of course, is that a lot of birds navigate, we think, using basically a quantum computer, which is something that we as humans have completely failed to design. And what I think is happening with dung beetle, I suspect you'll find there's an element of that in the way that they navigate and find their way to dung. P-Heart? Sorry, I think I'm going to have to ask for that question again. Oh. If a dung ball gets wet, can it be reused again? You mean by dung beetles, P-Heart? I don't think so, no. Because I think a lot of what the dung beetles like is the moisture. There's probably quite a lot of nutrition in the moisture in dung. It's not just water, so I wouldn't think so, no. Now, is this what I think it is? Or is it just a piece of bird dung? Herbie? Scale insect? Or is that bird poo?
Bird poo.
It is in fact bird poo, according to Herbert. He says this is not a scale insect, it is a piece of bird poo. How fascinating and wonderful. How embarrassing at the same time. Now, I will just tell you something about this bird poo, and that is that, of course, the white bit there is uric acid, and birds and reptiles are unable to urinate and defecate separately, so they must do it out of the same opening. That's called the cloaca, and that's why we find you urinating and defecating at the same time, and that's basically hardened urine on the top. How fascinating.
Wonderful.
Yes. Not a scale insect, but a piece of bird turd. On that note, let's get across to Jamie Patterson, who is more polite than I, and will find you something a lot more delightful than the turd of a bird.
No, I have a history with finding other such defecations of animals. I was going to go to Sydney's Dam until I remembered, unfortunately, that Jigga can't go to Sydney's Dam. She doesn't have signal there. But I promise I will try and find what's happening with those lines, and I will get back to you if we have any answer on that. I'm sure they're going to be absolutely fine. I'm sure those cubs will be reunited with their moms once again, and we will once again be 6 cubs strong. But for now, we just don't know. I found you something that is not a bird or a defecation. It is in fact a steenbok, and if I go backwards, can you see it there, Dave? It's peering at you. There we go. Hello, little girl. A fully grown female steenbok. She's slightly smaller than the baby impala that we've spent our afternoon looking at. Slightly bulkier, but definitely slightly shorter. She's roughly the size of what's a good breed of dog to compare her to? Something small and light. Goodness, I can't think now. I had a breed in my head. Yes, that's perfect, like a spaniel. She's like a little cocker spaniel. Bye-bye. And that, of course, is our typical view of Steenbok dashing off. She's probably just stopped behind that termite mound. They tend not to go all that far, and they just go to a hiding place where they feel slightly more safe, and that's that. So I doubt she's gone all that far. And since we can't go to Sydney's Dam, I think we'll go to Buffelshoek Dam instead. Go and check out the water holes. It's hot this afternoon. It's quite an oppressive heat, so hopefully something's come down to drink. And maybe even, perhaps I spoke about Karula coming back, maybe even Tingana will decide to grace us with his presence. I'm sure Brent filled you in on the fact that he walked over our vehicle tracks this morning. Virginia, you would like to go on a pangolin search. I have to tell you, Virginia, that every drive is a pangolin search from our perspective. Luckily, I have Dave, the great pangolin spotter, who has spotted more pangolin than any of us on these live drives, and that's because he saw one. The only one. The one and only. Well done, Dave. He wasn't quite sure what it was. But other than that, he is the greatest pangolin spotter we have. Statistically, of the pangolins we have seen, Dave has spotted all of them.
I'll take it.
You'll take it. So yes, Virginia, always a pangolin search. A pangolin, for our new viewers who are wondering what on earth a pangolin is, it's probably the rarest mammal species you could see on these drives. They are the most shy, the most secretive. As far as I know, Brent's pangolin that he found with Dave, let's be accurate, that Dave found on the Kruger boundary was the first one I think that had ever been seen on the live drives. I might be wrong, certainly the first one in the last 2 and a bit years. So, yes, we are always searching for pangolin. The biggest problem with seeing pangolin on a day like today is it's very hot. Winter is usually your best time for our secretive nocturnal animals. A pangolin is a walking artichoke-like animal, or a spiny anteater is perhaps a better way of describing it, rather than a walking artichoke. They have scales, they are nocturnal, and they are anteaters. And they are about yay big. Couple of kilograms, hefty little animal, lovely looking creatures that curl up into a ball when they're threatened. It is a little bit hot. Your best time of year for seeing pangolins during the day is winter. But animals and rule books, we know all about that, don't we? Never ever say never. I'm trying to gauge if that woodlands is going to be worth it. Can you see it hopping around? Sorry, Dave. He's. If we look at the big tree with the leaves, the other big tree. Oh, okay, that'll do. That'll definitely do. I'll go with that. What on earth have we got here? This is interesting. Well done, Dave. That's definitely not a woodland kingfisher, but it is a very large bird of prey. And I wonder perhaps if it's not that very large bird of prey we saw earlier. It is a very warm bird of prey as well. I'm just looking at the wings and the way that they cross, the very, very long wings that seem to cross at the back. Just a slight crest to it. I'm not 100% sure. I want to get a bit closer. Would be ideal. How am I going to do that? Where's my nearest road? Let's try and sneak up on that. Let's try and get a little bit closer, figure out exactly what it is. Unfortunately, my binoculars are irreparable. I'm going to have to buy a new pair of binoculars, but I'm going to have to go all the way around and onto the fire break to get a closer view. So we've all just got to hope that this particular bird decides to hang around. Please hang around, bird. Well spotted, Dave. That is most I can tell you what it's not. It's not a woodland kingfisher. That it is most definitely not. My bird IDing skills are on fire this afternoon. I did see a little bit earlier, I had to rush back briefly to the main camp that we all live in and work out of. I had to rush back to the main camp to just do a little bit of work on the vehicle, and I thought I saw a juvenile martial eagle. That one to me though doesn't look big enough to be a juvenile martial. And I know that James also saw a mystery bird this morning. He said juvenile steppe eagle. Now let's go and see. Those long wings at the back, it's making me think steppe. But I couldn't see the eye and the face clearly enough. And with the wind blowing like that, it sort of created this impression of a crest that I think might be, oh, bumpy, might be a false impression. Okay, now we've got to hope in our long journey that our bird has decided to stick around. Luckily, the team at Djuma have fixed up this road beautifully. Now, Brandon, you reckon that it is an African hawk eagle? It's possible. I don't think so, though. I think it's too big. I have to confess, just being able to see perspective, it could well be. There is a pair of African hawk eagles. Sorry, everybody. Let's bump our way through this. There is a pair of African hawk eagles that live here. I don't think it's an African hawk eagle, but it's possible that you are correct. I think it's a little bit too big, though. Oh, goodness. Bird book flying everywhere, somewhat ironically. My bottle of water's tumbling about. There we go. Alright. Now we've got to seriously hope that it hasn't decided to fly away. And that I can remember where it was. I think we were just past this crest. That's where the woodland was. That's the tree that the woodland kingfisher was in that turned into an eagle. There it is. Okay, let's try and get a view of it from a different angle. The other thing that makes me think not, but perhaps I was mistaken in my glimpse, was that its boots or its feathered legs looked very dark to me. Okay, let me take my foot off the brake so that we don't. Well done, Dave. Ooh, it could be with that light under the wings. It's too big. It is slightly too big for an African hawk eagle. Excuse me, would you be so kind as to turn around? Dark eye, but I mean that doesn't really help us in terms of the various eagles. Most of them have dark eyes. It's definitely an eagle, obviously, just given the size, the shape of the bill, the shape of the body, and the legs. Kim, you say Wahlbergs again. It's a little bit big for a Wahlbergs. It's actually got a yellow. It doesn't have a yellowish eye, because that would be hugely helpful. It does, doesn't it? I'm not mistaken. I mean, I'm busy looking through my monitor, but it does look like it is slightly yellow. You got that bit of extra zoom. Oh yes, of course, Dave can actually zoom in a little more. Very dark in color. I want to see your front. It would be most useful if I could see your front. If you would be so kind as to turn around. There's one other thing that I'm thinking, but I just want to check before I say it. I was thinking about a lesser spotted. It's a bit dark, and perhaps doesn't have enough on the wings, not enough white on the wings. I have this funny feeling I'm being very silly, and I'm not quite sure why I've got this funny feeling that I'm being very silly. There's something so familiar about this particular eagle. I can tell you that with that face, it's definitely not an African hawk eagle. So Julia, you said the juvenile marshal. That's what I was thinking. That was my first thought, and then I said I wasn't sure it was big enough, but I thought I'd seen one earlier. Dave, I think this is the same bird we nearly stopped for earlier. It's actually, now that I think about it, it's directly in the line that we were in from before. A juvenile marshal, the funny thing about juveniles is they can always be a little bit tricky. That's what I was thinking with the size, that it's too big for almost anything else but a marshal. So there we go. Julia, I think I'm on the same page as you. I think it is a juvenile marshal, and I think that crest, with the wind blowing it up, is what we are looking at. But where? I'm just trying to find it in my book so I can show you. Juvenile marshals have a great deal of white on them. But it would be wonderful if it was a juvenile marshal eagle. I have not seen one of those in quite a while. Isn't it beautiful? I think it's a juvenile on its way to getting the adult marshal eagle's plumage. I think that's exactly what it is. And I think it's the same bird that Dave and myself stopped for earlier. And remember, I straight away said a juvenile marshal eagle. Now I've overthought everything. But it's a juvenile marshal. I'm pretty sure that's what it is. The problem is... Good. So Brent is on the same... I'm not quite sure how, but Brent is agreeing with us. Brent agrees. It is a juvenile marshal. I'm impressed. It just hasn't quite got to the point that it's got that darkness. I mean, that it's in between. So if we look at our juvenile marshal here, here's our juvenile marshal. Very, very light in color. So it's a very light colored bird. However, there of course is the adult plumage, and I think our one is coming in between here. And did have a very, very short gape here. So the sort of the distance that the bill extends, and the adults do have yellowish eyes. And I think that this is a juvenile marshal that is well on its way to getting its adult's plumage. Now there we go. We have our answer. And well done for Julia for sending that through. It is a juvenile marshal eagle. How lovely. That is a relatively unusual sight. I can tell you what is not an unusual sight is the sight of James lying on the ground. Let's go and see what he's up to.
I'm attempting the posture of Cleopatra. How am I doing, Brian?
Great. The camera loves you.
Do I look like Cleopatra?
Exactly.
After some Botox? That's not why I'm lying on the ground, everybody. That was just an aside. We've been sitting here for a little while, and of course Brian and I became bored. Now, what we have here is something actually very interesting. This is the midden of a steenbok. Now, a steenbok, as many people know, is a territorial little antelope, the smallest antelope that we get here. But what's interesting here is that he's buried his dung. Now, I read about this, and you read that they bury their dung in order that they are not obvious to predators. This guy's done a particularly poor job of it. But they only do it in the middle of their territories. On the outside of the territory, they don't bury the dung like this. They leave it out so that other steenbok know that this is where they live. But inside the territory, they bury it over like this. So he's come and he's kicked. You can see we're pointing with the grass now. He's kicked there, dug up the soil, pushed it over the dung. Not done a very good job of it. It's happened right now, and in fact we saw a steenbok running away from this spot just as we came up towards it. So I think that's rather interesting, don't you? And it smells, well, it smells like goat dung, basically. Brandon, you've asked a very good question, and it's one we discuss quite often, and one that I'm not entirely sure. It's a thorn in my bottom, Brian. I'm going to stand up now. We're okay now. Right, why are steenbok alone? It's a very, very good question, and it's an interesting one. It is because they want to remain hidden. Now that might seem obvious, but it isn't really, because why wouldn't an impala want to remain hidden? Why wouldn't a buffalo want to remain hidden? Why do they live in herds, and why does steenbok choose to live on their own? And the answer is because once you are above a certain size, say bushbuck sized, it is to your disadvantage to be in a group, because even though you might have extra vigilance, it's still more effective to stay on your own. You are detected far less than you are able to see things. So to put it another way, if you're big like an impala is, the disadvantage of being more obvious to the predators is outweighed by the advantage of the greater vigilance. If you're very small like a steenbok, the disadvantage of being more obvious to predators if you're in a group is outweighed by the advantage of living on your own and being able to hide. Does that make sense? Every time I give that explanation, I have to think very carefully about which part is disadvantageous and which part is advantageous. And let me tell you, it's not easy with the thorn in your left buttock. Good. On we go. Lions calling. At this time of the day. Long way away. Ooh, ooh, ooh. Miles and miles away. I probably, chitwa, eh? Yeah, Herbert says, yeah, probably chitwa, so quite a long way away from here. Anyway, that is the steenbok, and we're going to proceed. We're going to proceed now and head a little bit further south, and then we're going to head west and head back north, back towards quarantine clearings. If I do develop a slight limp, everybody, it is, of course, because I was stabbed mercilessly. Oh, no, I have not, Jackie J. You say, have I heard Herbert do the black-bellied bustard call? We'll ask him now if he will do it. Herbert, would you be prepared to do the black-bellied bustard call? Allow me to stand next to you so that you can hear it. Thank you, Jackie J. You just made my day. That is fantastic. Ah, good. All right. Brent Leo Smith is up and around. I'm not sure where he is or what he's found, but you can ask him while I collapse on the floor laughing at that wonderful rendition of the black-bellied bustard.
Well, we ventured off Djuma onto Arathusa. Just going to do a quick check around this area. We did have shadow not too far away from here a few days ago, but in Djuma. So I just want to check up towards Knobthorne open area, maybe down towards Red Dam, and maybe we will have some shadow luck. She has been quite elusive over the last while. Now, other than that, we have not seen much at all. I think 3 impala, 7 waterbuck, and a few birds. Now, Anita would like to know, where are the elephants? Well, Anita, what happens as soon as it rains, the elephants spread out. Oh, I just want to listen to this quickly. Sorry, Anita. But they've all spread quite far, quite wide, and into Kruger, maybe some down to the south, the Sand River. So sorry, I'm just listening to the Game Drive channel. So they're very well spread out, and they're quite highly mobile, and they'll be following where the different rains are. Afternoon stations, Brent crossing from the north. Any updates for the afternoon?